Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Keys to Real Estate. I'm your host, Mary Schuster. Today, we're talking information, intelligence, and how to interact with it all in an intentional way. Is there a way to wrangle it all into a life you actually want to live instead of a series of mere transactions and constantly reacting to everything all the time? Well, we're not sure, but Hoyt Mann is here to talk through some of those concepts and help us figure out a way to put forward a more organic intelligence at work and in life. So please enjoy my conversation with the consistently curious and big picture thinker, Mr. Hoyt Mann. The presenting sponsor of the Keys to Real Estate podcast is RamQuest. RamQuest fosters a customer-first culture built around an unwavering commitment to provide solutions that don't just meet, but exceed expectations. RamQuest's newest title and settlement production solution, Horizon, delivers unparalleled efficiency, robust features, and scalability to ensure you have tools to boost productivity and elevate performance like never before. Horizon streamlines your operation with secure 24/7 access, automatic updates, and all the power that only the cloud can offer. Plus, Horizon offers a direct connection to the industry's most extensive network of service providers and partners. Experience Horizon for yourself when you visit ramquest.com. And now, please enjoy the show. Hoyt, welcome to Keys to Real Estate.
Mary, thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here with you.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to it too. Well, we've known each other, my dear, over 20 years now, which doesn't seem mathematically accurate or possible at all. But you know what? Something I've never asked you is, how did you get drawn to the field of technology in the first place?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those key questions we always ask people that we meet. We see it as you're either tricked into it or you're born into it. And so in my case, I was tricked in by Randall. Randall Nelson, the founder of RamQuest, tricked me into it and was able to keep me engaged. And it was super, super interesting. And I was just a software guy looking for a unique opportunity that RamQuest provided. So that was back in the early days. And we met because you're a RamQuest customer.
Yes. Yeah. Should we say the year? 2001?
It was 2001. Yes.
Very different times.
You were 13 and I thought
13.
I thought you were a little young
14,
for the industry. Yes.
Well, I forget how that math goes. I know it was such such a different time. Tech was doing, I think, much different things at the time, certainly for the title and settlement industry. It's kind of gone into a very different lane now, which is interesting, and you're working on that side of it. I want to talk with you about that, but I don't know. Everything, because it does seem so fast moving now, especially I'm sure in the world of AI where you're living now. How do you balance your actual life and your work, and what's going on there? Because I can just imagine with the pace of how things are adapting and evolving and changing, you got to stay at a dead run at work. But how's that work with life, Wade?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And I run in real life, which somehow slows down other things in my life. I call it burning off the crazy. And so the concept of staying moving, exercise, and trying to be a little bit more mindful about my health, my overall health is key, because if you're not a healthy person, it can impact every part of your life, whether it be your home life or your work life and any other interactions you have. That toxin, if you will, that builds up in your body's got to get out some way. And so I think we all have different ways that kind of have to help, flush your system. So
it sounds like you're saying you intentionally find ways to slow the rest of life down a little bit.
Yeah. And it's about being purposeful. Like so many times you can say, hey, look, I don't have time to work out, or I don't have time to do these things. But it's those things that are kind of a lot of times very meaningful, as we are both dog owners. Being able to take our dog for a walk or play with our dog is like a very, key part of, I enjoy, taking my dog for a walk, or especially at nighttime and the stars are out. It's just it's really kind of that moment of calm and peace in with the chaos that is our world. It seems like you get started, and if you wake up in the morning and you reach over to your phone and you're like, okay, I got these messages, and then the next thing you know, you're drinking your coffee and you're scrolling through social media, whether it be LinkedIn or your personal media, and you're kind of filling your brain. And these are the first things you're doing in your day. And then you're cramming down a breakfast and out the door, driving with all the crazy traffic around to walk into an office that's got 10 problems that were either there before you left yesterday, or that cropped up between when you left and when you walked in the door. It just creates this, in my mind, kind of an anxiety of sorts, this stress response to life. And that's your personal life, and then the business life, and then all the things. And it really, to me, is pretty symptomatic. If you look around, it doesn't take long for you to see so-and-so's burned out, and you can just see it on their face, and, are not in a good place. And, when you talk to them, somewhat of their spark is kind of dimmed a little bit. And it's always if you know somebody and you've known them for years, you can see that.
Yeah. Well, that's I take your point so well, because burned out used to mean if you heard somebody was burnt out, or you saw somebody exhibiting those kinds of stress, you would tend to think, oh, they might need an extended vacation from their job. It was usually job related, barring some big life event going on, death, cancer, something like that. It was okay. I understand. I can diagnose this and I need to take a break from work. But to your point, it's so different now. It just feels like we're in this constant state of reactivity. And I feel like it's maybe burning out our nervous systems a little bit. I don't know. Have you thought about that?
Absolutely. I think exactly that, to where we're now kind of just doused with so much of that anxiety, so to speak, that you're trying to be a high performer, trying to keep up that pace. This concept of never taking a break, so to speak, and never getting unplugged. It's like, it's really, the human body is really not designed to run that way. When I talk about AI, when I talk about some of the stuff that we do, I always like to go back in history and look at historically, 1800s, even as far as that, of how humans have kind of come and evolved in a way. And so I like to start back at the revolution of when machines were introduced into our everyday workplace. And so having that industrial revolution era, and started over in Europe first before it came over to America. But this concept of introducing machines into manual work, there was a concept around these machines were designed not to fail, not to have downtime. They were introduced to produce more 24/7. And that was where we were going to. And so now the human machine, if you will, is not designed to be up 24/7. There's pre-programmed downtime, and downtime is when good things happen. Where in the Industrial Revolution, downtime is when bad things happened. Right. And so there's been a transition.
Machines tend to not need the restoration time, at least not as frequently. And I think you're right. We don't realize how much we're running our machines close to 24/7 sorry, but I have to blame technology a fair amount, although our management of it has, I'm sure, a lot to do with it too. I'd love to hear what you think, because it was supposed to make life better, and it was going to bring everybody together. And I don't know what goes on in your social media feed, but it not only has largely done the opposite of that. It's just everything is so big, such a 5-alarm everything. Even just the language that's used is just meant to really trigger something in us that's probably not systematically healthy. Is that part of what you're factoring into this work? It sounds like you're kind of talking a little bit about work-life balance or sanity balancing.
Yeah. There's that balance for sure. And I think it's always that concept of being sensational. You always watch the news, and they're really reporting on the stories that are most interesting, which tend to really kind of captivate your attention. And it's in our social media is just a different way of capturing our attention in like sensationalized tidbits. And now they're super available. So you don't have to wait for the 6 o'clock news. It's in the palm of your hand. Anytime your brain sparks, oh, I wonder what's going on, or what's happening in the world,
and it doesn't automatically turn off at 6:30 like the news used to.
Right.
So you're going to the well for this hit of something, chemistry, dopamine, whatever it is, and then what's happening physically after you keep exposing yourself to that all the time?
Yeah, I think that's where we get to the burnout scenario. And again, we have more ways to communicate than we ever have. From a marketing perspective, communicating on all these different platforms, as well as email marketing. And, this concept of we're being marketed to 24/7, and whether it be in social media or just however it's coming in. But the number of communications are increasing year after year. I mean, you have more emails, I'm pretty sure, this year than you did last year if you total them up. And if you did, it'd probably be a crazy number that you're looking at, And so, and this concept of we have even more emails than ever, and now let's throw text messaging on there too. The nice part is probably the phone is ringing less, but it's not going away. So now you have more channels of ways to be communicated with, in personal as well as in the business world, than you ever have. Then that means you are turned on to perform or to sort through emails or through respond to text messages, which create a different level of urgency. These are all kind of spiking up. Oh, I got to do something. Oh, I got to do something. Oh, this is, and so, yeah, I look at our brains as, there's a teeter-totter of anytime you have, good things happening, there's your chemicals in your brain kind of push the other side of your teeter-totter. But with social media, that pushes so many good things up that you can almost have like a depression pulling down to help even out the chemicals in your brain. And so, again, I'm a layman. I'm talking about this from 10 times removed from doctors and all the specialists, but it's what I can see in practice.
But you live what I'm sure is what most people listening would consider a very high-tech life. And for you to come out here and say, listen, this is really important. And it sounds like you're intentionally managing it. I think that's a really important message for people. So if I may ask, what strategies do you employ, or how do you structure your day, or what have you found as some sort of antidote to this being on and sort of hyped up and present and available 24/7? What are some of your tips and tricks?
I wish I could say that I got it all dialed in, Mary. I got the answers. Let me tell you what they are. I do not have the answers, and I get sucked into all the other things just as much as the next person. But there are some things I think that we can do, and it's that concept of unplugging, taking off the technology, your Apple Watches, which I support often, taking off the Apple Watch, leaving the phone, going on a walk, things like that is something that Randall and I do twice a day. Every day is that we basically go for a half-mile walk that takes less than 10 minutes. We do it every day. And it's like clockwork. And if you know Randall's a very structured kind of guy. So it's 10:30 a.m., 2:30 p.m., and it happens. And we drop everything and we just go. And so that it's a good technique to employ. The other side of it is putting time on my calendar, basically scheduling quiet time. And so putting a timer on, closing everything down, pen and paper, and that's the extent of my technology to organize my head.
What do you use that time for?
Yeah, it's the organization of it all. And instead of the putting out the fires as quick as they're popping up, it's being able to have opportunity to organize time and thought. It's something I use for prayer time for myself. I organize, thoughts along those lines. I have being grateful about things in my life, thinking about other people in my life that, and then thinking about things I'm struggling with. So it's a way to kind of, again, center myself to a point so that I can then kind of, open my door and interact with people, hopefully in a much gentler and kinder way versus a way that I'm feeling all the environmental stresses, and then it's going to come out in my interpersonal interactions.
I'm so glad to hear you mention that, because we see so many people who are just going through and reacting, although I don't think I don't know that they would necessarily categorize it as reacting. I think in their mind, it's just being attentive to all their reports and all their areas of operation and all their, including willful obligations, but at home, personal stuff. And they're so frizzed that even though they want to have a conversation with you about leadership or the next stage of evolution or where we're going next month, you approach them and it's just what, and they don't really mean what, but that's what they say because they're just constantly inundated. And a lot of that, I think, is just this manufactured sense of being busy equals being effective.
Yes.
And you can go on like that for a while, I think, but until you have that built-in reflection time where you're being intentional and starting to strategize and kind of getting all the stuff that, to use a skiing term, take all the stuff that was in your yard sale and bring it back in and sort it back out and go again. It sounds like you've really strictly incorporated that into your day, week. How do you do it?
Yeah, on a daily basis. But I really want to emphasize too that I don't have it all figured out, and consistency is probably my biggest is the biggest distraction in my life, is being able to stay consistent. But I think it's giving yourself a little bit of grace and knowing it's practice, not perfection, and taking micro steps to that. Incorporating different things into your world. So it's always change one thing is the best way to look at, in my opinion. One small thing done over and over again leads to the next small thing done over and over again. And then you ultimately look back and over a year, if you made a half dozen of these small micro steps, then you can see significant change. And it's recognizing what that change needs to be, or trying to squish out some of the things of your life that you don't particularly like, squish them out by putting more of the good stuff in. And instead of this concept of let's go on a diet, it's like, no, let's just reshift where we're putting our energy. Another technique that I try to not only use personally, but for people here at the company as I interact with them. And I think it really comes back to what you and I are talking about, is this concept of this relationship that we have, whether it be internal to our company or to our customers or to our vendors, vendor partners. It's relationships matter more than transactions. And that's one of the things we focus on in a customer service world is, are we focused on transactional interactions? Are we focused on building relationship as well as helping out where we can? And it's easy, if you're overloaded, to get in a transactional mode. Mm-hmm. Somebody says it's broke, I fixed it, moving on to the next thing.
Next.
And it really turns into transactions. And I think people feel that too. It's like, do I have a relationship with, or do I want or have a relationship with the company? Where relationships are built is not in those little small, interactions. It's built when there's a little extra time, to be able to explore how are things going. And, if they're talking about personal thing, being able to connect to that personal level. So yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, I'm sure that slowing down has is a prerequisite for that, right? Like if you're just in that go, react mode, all of that, and you can get away with that for a little while in crunch time, just like you can get away with, 4 hours of sleep for a little bit during crunch time. But
right.
To your point, a steady diet of it will erode a relationship faster than really anything. And I guess that's true in business and personal relationships.
I think so. I was really impressed. My daughter, she goes to Baylor, so I love talking about her. I was really impressed. She had a freshman orientation camp that lasted 3, maybe 4 days, and part of the check-in process is all the kids checked their phones in, and so they all were basically, not only were they out of the house as these pre-freshmen, but they were disconnected from their families and social media. And that was a big deal of their relationship building with one another. They're kind of forced into that relationship building. And it made it to where she created bonds in that process that still exist, over, almost 3 years later. So yeah. And I think back on that and I thought, one experience, and as a parent going, I'm disconnected from my daughter that's, hundreds of miles away. It was very unsettling because, we'd gotten used to being connected. and being able to reach out at any point. But finding that disconnection healthy from her side as she was growing, it was healthy for us as well. But when you talk to executives and you talk about what was your best vacation or things like that, I find it interesting that more times than not, people are like, well, I went on this cruise and I didn't want to get the internet package and I was disconnected from the world and it was the best week of my life. It says I was off the grid and it was the best week of my life. I think it shows, if we pay attention to that, it shows that the human spirit, human condition, as we're all experiencing, needs that downtime and needs to be able to restore. So yeah,
I love that we're starting to have these conversations, and I love that you, again, especially as a technologist, are leaning into that and saying, okay, yes, how do we be more human? And obviously we both think there is a role for technology to play in that equation, but to your points, I don't think we have it anywhere close to dialed in right yet.
No, I think you got to recognize where you're at. You got to take stock and be honest in where you really are at. And to your point, being busy versus productive, there's a healthy line between those two. But again, being honest about what's happening. And then again, the role of technology is to make our life better. In my mind, it's really, people are at the center of the whole equation. You have technology helping people out, and business and technology and people are in that stack there. People are driving the implementations of that technology. And we look at AI, it's a general use type technology. AI is nothing in and of itself. It is what the people implementing that technology actually can implement and, again, make people's lives better. So, and when we talk about in our industry, it's like we are so people focused that how do you blend the technology side in with the people side, have it be an impact and not a detriment to the work environment?
What answers are you finding in that regard? Because that's one of the big, I don't even say fears, questions about AI of how do we find that right level where it is augmenting us and making us more efficient in sort of handling the no-brainer data type things. But how do we prevent from tipping over to the edge to where the AIs are just doing everything and we think we're going to go have a second career as a painter or something, but that rarely doesn't happen. So, I mean, just what are some of the factors to consider in getting those equations right?
I think it's really being honest with the work that's being done, okay. And analyzing what work is actually being done. And again, I put it in two different buckets, the transactional work and then relationship work. Because when we talk about relationship work, no robot AI, I don't care what it is, it's not going to replace the human interaction that people like you and I have. Not going to happen. But the flip side will happen is that technology can squeeze out opportunities to have relationship. So analyzing the task and to understand, is this a relationship oriented task or is this a busy, transactional task? And to automate the busy transactional task should give more time and space for relationship-based tasks. And I think people confuse the two. And like you said, if you're like, hey, I'm busy, were you productive? That's a harder question to ask and really be honest about it. But it's like if somebody wants to know information about their closing, that can be very transactional versus I feel uncomfortable with this scenario. Can you walk me through what are the pieces and parts that I should be thinking about or looking out for? That's relational conversation. It takes time. That's not a 5-minute or 2-minute transaction. It's a 15, 20-minute conversation. And we know all the good agents out there that take time to spend with their customers, whether it be an underwriter agent or a title agent. When they take time and work with their customers and build those relationships, it's what great companies are built on, is those relationships. And so I see and I talk with title company owners, and they are combating the exact issue of the things that are taking time away from the important relationship building task or the things they're looking to automate.
Support for today's episode is provided by October Research. October Research provides national coverage of case law, news, regulatory updates, and competitive business strategies critical for sustaining an innovative and compliant real estate business operation. Our portfolio publications offer independent and unbiased information that helps you stay educated and informed on what matters most to your business. So visit octoberresearch.com to learn more about our portfolio of real estate publications, sign up for free email news, educational webinars, and premier industry events for thought leaders. Knowledge, the competitive advantage. Well, one of the things I'm have growing concern about, and I'm sorry, Hoyt, I'm not saying, oh, the kids these days. I will say, as a employer, manager, supervisor, mentor, whatever, you can see where this is going is that, yes, the more automated or the more tasks that are rote, don't require a lot of analysis, are going to go towards the machines. And yes, that should give us all time to focus more on the humanness of it all, the relationships of it all. My concern, my question, I don't know that it elevates to a concern yet, is it's interesting to me that so many of our young people, our early career workers, are great at the tech of it all, the automated tasks of it all. In fact, a lot of times we have to go to them and say, how do I do this? Because I don't understand, my VCR is blinking, midnight. But if we take this off their plate, where they seem to be, at least from my perspective, underdeveloped is how to be personable. Many, not overgeneralizing, many don't think the telephone is a viable tool. They are in the office with their headphones in all day. And so I'm have some consternation over the fact that the very things we need them to be able, then they need to be able to excel at, that this part of it all, as technology automates more, is the place they have the least amount of skill set visibly. Tell me where I'm right or wrong, or blow my theory out of the water completely.
Well, no, you're not wrong. And any one of us that have been on the airplane, in the past few years, airplane conversations are way down, which I'm very sad about. Because we close off when we get into our world and we're isolated. And I joke about that, but what I see though is the challenge at hand for leaders is managing differently. Is recognizing that action needs to be taken to help facilitate or build some of these soft skills that we do see in the younger generation. Are they being brought in and being tasked with mounds and mounds of tasks? And so it's like that concept of a mentor internally speaking. I think if the mentor is too busy based on all their tasks to mentor that next generation, therein lies a lack of knowledge transfer, as well as even some of the skills to perform these different relationship oriented type. Hey, you need to reach out to them, this person, have a conversation with them, get to know more about what's going on here. And that's where a lot of learning in my mind occurs. Mm-hmm. The great thing about our conferences that we go to is that gives time and space to build those relationships and to have that time together. There's not too many people you see that are got their earphones plugged in, kind of isolated from the group. Everybody is pretty social most times. So,
well, and I've concerned about some of these younger workers because many of them either didn't have their high school graduation or their college graduation because of what was going on, or both. For a real small cohort, they didn't get either one for different reasons. And right. Then they're going into this hybrid, many times a hybrid or full remote work situation. So they don't know how to be in the office. They don't learn how to be with colleagues. And then what happens is, and they can be very successful workers. They're good at managing their time. They did a fair amount of school remote. But what happens is they show up a year later for their review and aren't aware of why they aren't up for promotion or why they're not moving up the ladder. There's just so much of this organic, natural mainstreaming, homogenization, finish of maturation that these young people just don't seem to be having access to. I don't know if you guys face that. Do you see that out in the world? Have you seen any good remedies for that?
No, but you're bringing up the point, and this is, with basically, once COVID set in, and even before that, the concept of remote working really challenged people like us, people like, the managers that that we now have to manage differently. It is a very challenging. I'm old school. I want to see the people in the chair. I want to see them every day. I want to talk about various things. But remote workers seem to, at least in my world, kind of sometimes out of sight, out of mind. And I'm not great at shifting to, oh, I need to have that stand up call with them, like I would somebody here in the office. And so that's a really challenging shift. It challenges between the difference of, what is a task, and what's the purpose behind these roles, and how do you measure performance? And these are all now changing. And so when I think about AI, and like you said, doing some of the rote activities, and then there's fear around, well, if this AI does what I do right now, then what do I do? And the challenge for leaders is realizing that those resources are just as valuable today as when you hired them. The busy work is less challenging, and so therefore you have to shift over to managing differently. And I think that's where it's less about being busy and more about being productive. And again, coming back to those rote tasks, you know what? There's more tasks to be done that require humans making decisions, doing some type of analysis, and AI is going to get it wrong, 20% of the time or 15% of the time, which I think we all should have a healthy appreciation for this concept of these are assistants. These are not correct. They don't a lot of times put all the logic and reasoning to play that you and I would naturally think, why wouldn't this be the next right step and decision? It's because AI is being programmed to handle these scenarios, but at the same time, it's not the silver bullet. It's this magic black box that things are coming out of. And in the AI world, they a lot of people, and even in our world, you try to look back and like, why did the AI make this decision? It obviously decided to go down route B versus route A. Why is that? And in coding, when I go back to my software engineer days, you could step through the code and you can watch the logic kind of fall down through, and you could see where things were maybe interpreted a certain way, and then you can program to make that better. But in AI world, it's doing hundreds of thousands or millions of different input like decisions, and you don't understand why it's coming to the answer it does. And if you ask the AI, how did you get there? It can't tell you how it got there. And it's a nuance, but being in the industry, you realize that that it's, again, human in the loop is something I always like to talk about. Is that we will never get out of it. We can't be replaced, because humans are necessary not only to train but to monitor, and to and again and to keep everything the way it should be. And machines don't make these decisions well. Yeah.
You're reminding me of our first episode this season. Phil Schulman talked about, well, love Phil, talked about the difference between intelligence and wisdom. And he said, intelligence is knowing that a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in a fruit salad. It sounds similar to what you're saying.
It's exactly right. Yes. Yes, it is exactly right. Yeah. That is, that wisdom, that gut feel, all those things. It's funny on how we project a lot of human personality traits onto our pets. We think they might think in certain ways, and there's a lot of that projection that happens. And we're no different when we turn to AI and these machines. I mean, our company is even named a real name. So, it is, and I talk about her.
Mm-hmm.
and I put human characteristics on technology, but we all should realize that it's technology. It's not human. It's not thinking. It doesn't have a moral compass. It's not going to make it's there's an example of AI being taken to the nth degree. And have you heard of this example of how AI was challenged to make paper clips? No.
No.
Okay, so there was an exercise where it kind of pushing AI to make these decisions, in the concept of make as many paper clips as you can. And so AI starts going through how it's going to make paper clips, and they kept pushing the AI make more paper clips, more, and ultimately got to a point to where AI decided that human beings were going to be a good source of paper clips. And so,
because the mission is build paper clips.
yes,
Do everything to make paper clips. Yeah.
yes.
Got
And
it.
so it just comes back to the point of no human, no soul, no moral compass. We cannot be placing that in the AI world. It's really there to make our lives better and give us opportunity for downtime and restoration, and really just to be better humans. Because when we're well rested, when we're mentally balanced, where we have good nutrition pumping through our brains, all the things that make us human. When we're better along those lines, we're better for everyone else as well, and we have time.
Yeah, and if it can do some of the reacting for us, essentially, to use a kind of a hack shorthand, if it can do some of our reacting, then we can take time to, as you said, go to the walk and think back up at this level that the machine can't do, that we can sit back and take a 360 view instead of just constantly being in that, to your point, transactional, not relational, small picture versus big picture and where we want to go. We can offload some of that, and I know it means striking a Goldilocks level of engagement with it versus some little bit of autonomy. Ooh, it
Yeah.
sounds amazing. It sounds perfect. What's the catch?
Well, I think the catch is staying involved. I mean, you can't outsource. It's like outsourcing daycare and not really understanding where your fur baby or your little person's going. Yeah, we got to stay involved. We got to be part of it. We got to monitor. We can't just hand it over and hope for the best.
Set it and forget it. It's not an option.
Not an option. I like to think about the Jetsons and how Rosie interacted in their life. The Jetsons are great. I mean, think back when that cartoon came out, and how Rosie interacted with the family. And she was doing a lot of the things that we all would look at and say, man, I wish I had a robot to do those things. The laundry, cooking dinner. But what were the benefits? They all got to sit around a table and eat together. They were having those family meals. And again, as I get older, I realize and appreciate how valuable meal times are, that are dedicated to interacting with each other versus, everybody sitting with a TV tray and watching Netflix and
shoveling it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you framed this up as a way, important way, I think, to think about all this. And it's brought me to this question that I wondered, what's something now that you really wish you would have known 20 years ago?
You put me on the spot.
Sorry. No, we're talking about intelligence versus wisdom and sort of making it all work. And I mean, we hustled a lot together. We know all about the hustle, and don't tell me there's a crisis right now, because you'll see me hustle again. It sounds like you've wound your way through some different philosophies to maybe not be so much in that school anymore.
Yeah, it really has, which is restoration. That however somebody would define restoration. restoration is so much more important today than it was 20 years ago. I was definitely burning the candle at all three ends, and luckily I was able to kind of survive that. But it comes at a cost, and not recognizing or realizing what that cost was until 20 years later. I look back on it and like I was paying a pretty healthy toll in all the things that were happening, 20 years ago. And so I think that really is the takeaway. And I think you talk with most people that have a little gray hair, a little bit more than I had when we first met each other.
Mine's hidden. I pay good money to have mine hidden, Hoyt.
But you talk with these people and they'll say, enjoy the moments, and enjoy the people you're with, and take those times. You'll never regret taking those times. And that was something that was pretty much out of mind for me. I was at all costs, and that meant health, mind, body. Yeah, it was. That's what I was paying. So, yeah. There's a lot there, but on the professional side of things, I think that the concept of being curious is more strong today than it ever has been in the past. The concept there might be an idea of like, okay, it's risky to do these things, and this is going to make us uncomfortable, or this change is going to be very, very uncomfortable. But realizing that growth happens when pain exists, and that I think is if we all take a lesson away, I think we can recognize that whether you're working out and you're sore, or you're implementing new things, and with that fear of failing, and knowing it's okay. And if as you fail, you kind of brush yourself off, get back up, and that for the most part, and something that Randall and I always said, but nobody's going to die if you give a bad presentation or if the software doesn't work exactly the way it should. But what we can do is wake up the next day and make it better. So yeah, that's kind of the philosophy I like to take with me.
I like the notion you presented me with today, which is use tools to be more efficient so that your actual life can be more human. I'm not sure that that's a lot of what people try to balance or measure when they're thinking about what changes to make with technology and what to implement and what to leave for another day. I like how you've presented that. I'm going to have to
Cool.
think about that now.
Yeah, I just feel so sometimes beholden to technology, from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep, and I think it's taking a toll. I think we'll see more people talking about this topic of what is the true cost of technology, and how it impacts our lives. And I think we'll hear it in a lot of different areas. Again, this AI is a general purpose utility that goes across our entire life. I mean, you cannot pick up any news feed and not see some way, somehow AI is being applied to a different industry. And I think it's going to benefit us in the long run. But again, it's general use technology, and it takes people that have relationships, know and care, and can implement with a healthy dose of practicality, pragmatism. Yeah, because if you don't, that technology is not. I mean, it's just it's a tool in somebody's hand, and it depends on the skill of that person of how that tool is used. And again, I think we can think about our entire life and think about that concept. And I think that's a healthy way to look at technology and AI specifically. Is it's just a tool. And if it can't, you carve out the things in your life that are not adding value, and add the things in your life that will. And and I appreciate our relationship, and that adds value into my life. It makes me happy. And like I said, I was looking forward to our time here, because I always have a good time talking to you.
We always
walk away with a
a So that's every time. Well, and I, for one, I'm glad you're on Team Human, helping us figure this out. Because the the lure is there, the just more tech and more tech and more tech. And that's great. But can we also stop and ask the question, to what end? What am I trying to achieve by applying more of this? And it really is to be able to spend more time having conversations like this, to do the deep part of our work rather than I mean, I love checking off a list as much as the next person, but it's not very fulfilling at the macro level. So I'm giddy that you guys over there are thinking about this. You're intentionally crafting your life around it, and that you're helping people see how this the tech and the organic is the yin and yang of that we're trying to get to optimization. Yes,
Right. Yes. Yes. I like how you put that. Yeah.
I like the emphasis on the human.
Yes. Yes. Again, I think that we're going to be talking about this for a long time to come because we're really at the dawn of AI. And so I talked about it, the Industrial Revolution. Thinking about the dawn of the Industrial Revolution was people were absolutely enthralled by all these new machines that were coming in up and how they were improving people's lives. And from a sweatshop, doing some kind of textile work, to even in the auto manufacturing side. And I think back on those changes and how they've impacted people. We are at the dawn of AI. I know it's been going on for decades, but we're seeing some meaningful ways life's changing with that, and it's an exciting time to be. So.
Well, my friend, I appreciate you taking the time to sort of break it all down for us, and we appreciate you continuing to have your eye on the big picture and making it all meaningful.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate this opportunity to talk. It's a little less propeller head type talk than I'm used to.
I know they think we get together and talk about bits and bytes, but this is the stuff we really like to talk about.
This is it. That's right. That's
Thanks,
funny.
Hoyt.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Hoyt, for the openness and honesty about how to put it all together and make it work for us in a meaningful way. We appreciate your sharing the conversation in such a warmly human way, and you've given me a lot to think about. Listeners, if you would like to continue the conversation with Hoyt, his email address is linked in today's show notes. I think he'd like to connect with you. Thanks for joining us today. We'll keep bringing you the guests and conversation that will help you continue to hold your keys to real estate. Until next time, I'm Mary Schuster for October Research, where knowledge is the competitive advantage.